So now we're going to talk about software engineering versus computer engineering. This is another one that a lot of people ask the difference between, because both of them program, but what they don't realize is that the programming that you do is different. So when talking about computer engineering versus software engineering, there are going to be two things that you have to consider: the programming knowledge aspect and the electronics knowledge aspect. Well, we're going to start with the electronics because that one's a little bit shorter. So software engineers, at least in most software engineering majors, really don't learn much, if anything, about the hardware level. When you look at a lot of people who work in software, they really don't specialize. They'll probably know a little bit just because it comes with the territory, but they don't specialize on knowing about the hardware level. It's just not something that they specialize in. When you pick software engineering as your major, software is going to basically be your specialty. So when you go into software engineering, you're going to learn not only about how to program, but you're also going to learn about how software works within systems, like things like websites and databases and things where, it's not just one program, it's millions and millions of programs working together. It's you can't just learn about how software works on an individual level. You have to learn about how software works with other software. And, it's a fascinating field for sure. But, you don't really learn much about the hardware, so you don't have an appreciation for what's happening on a physical level. Computer engineering, on the other hand, I covered this in my electrical engineering versus computer engineering video. Computer engineers do need to learn the basics of hardware. You're going to take your circuits, your electronics course, your introductory one. You won't go into advanced stuff, but as a computer engineer, you do have a fundamental idea of what happens on a hardware level. That's just the territory. That's just what you do. Because as a computer engineer, you need to learn how hardware and software work together. Software engineers are more about how does software work with other software. Computer engineers, how does software work with hardware? That's a very simplistic, and obviously there's nuance. I'm not saying that this is like all black and white. Obviously, different professions do different things, and there's got to be some overlap here and there. So it's not, what I say is not the end-all be-all, but this is to give you more of an idea. If you don't enjoy the hardware side, if you're all about the programming and the software knowledge, that is software engineering. Now, that's pretty much it as far as hardware goes. Software engineers, not really, if anything, maybe a little bit. Computer engineers got more of a foundation of hardware. Not as much as electrical engineers, but a very decent understanding of it. Let's talk about software. When you talk about the difference in software knowledge between computer engineering and software engineering, it is incredible. So this deserves almost its own video, but the biggest idea between computer engineers and software engineers is high-level programming versus low-level programming. What do I mean by that? So high-level programming is something like, Python and C++. Things where, or languages where you don't really have to worry about pointers and, well, I guess C++ you do. So maybe something like Java and Python, I guess. C++ maybe not so much, but you get the idea. Things where you don't have to worry about pointers or memory allocation. All of that's done for you. That is high-level programming. Low-level programming is more what computer engineers do. The reason why we do low-level programming is because low-level programming interacts with the hardware closer. For example, low-level programming are things like C and assembly. These are low-level languages. C, you learn about pointers, and you have to allocate and deallocate memory. What it does is it teaches you as a computer engineer how to utilize your hardware, how to properly utilize your resources. As a computer engineer, you might have to go program a tiny little chip that only has like maybe a kilobyte of memory. Computer engineers, to complement their hardware knowledge, they learn low-level programming so that they can communicate with the hardware as closely as possible. Software engineers have more of a liberty to go with higher level languages, and they don't need to worry about, memory management as much, because their applications are running on systems where it's not really an issue. So hopefully you have an idea. Low level versus high level programming is where software engineers and computer engineers kind of taper off. Now, if you want to know, give me an example of high level programming versus low level programming. Okay, so think about your iPhone. When you pull it up and you can see all the different applications and stuff on it, that is software engineering. When you think of, well, what is a computer engineer program? Well, that's kind of the thing. When a computer engineer does programming, it's not really something you can see. For example, when you turn on your laptop or your computer, your desktop, your gaming PC, you have to load up Windows or Mac OS or whatever you're loading up, right? Well, you don't get to see that bootloader going in action that's going to, load up your operating system so that you can do whatever you want to do. You don't see that, but it's there, and trust me, it's important. Or, the Linux kernel, for example, that's written in C. That's not something that you see. It's not something that is going to be on your screen unless you want to look at the source code, but it's behind the scenes, and trust me, it's important. So if you want to go on kind of just a basic level, software engineers program things that you see. Computer engineers program things that you don't see. Now that's a very, very watered down and very broad statement. And in fairness, I guess that's not always true. There are some overlapping things. Computer engineers will write some applications that will be used by people, and you will see them. Software engineers can write background applications that you don't get to see. So it's not 100% set in stone. Again, there's nuance to all this, but it's just a very, very general guidelines. If you want to program things that you see and are tangible, software engineering. Computer engineering, when you're programming, you're operating very close to the hardware, and it's not anything that's going to be like flashy or that people are going to get to see. You're programming in the background. So that's low-level programming. So that's what computer engineering is. And I think it's very important to draw this distinction because, when you get out into the workforce and it's like, oh, I can program. Okay, well, what can you program? What languages can you program? What do you know how to program? The kind of programming that software engineers do versus what computer engineers do is night and day sometimes. If you can program a clock on a microwave, for example, something that a computer engineer would probably do, that doesn't mean that you can build a website. Now, you can probably learn. If you learn C, you can learn any language. I really do need to make a dedicated software video, what the different languages are and what's best for what and things like that. That'd be a good video. Let me know if you want to see that. But a computer engineer is really not going to thrive on doing high-level things like writing apps or, building websites, like I said, making games, game design. A computer engineer doing game design, those two things don't go together. Of course, you could learn, but still. So hopefully this gave you kind of an idea between the difference of software engineering and computer engineering. So to recap, if you enjoy software and you enjoy programming to the point you want to design websites and you want to do a lot of things that are tangible that you can see, that's going to be software engineering. If you want to learn how software works together and different levels of a software system, that's going to be software engineering. If you're more of how software communicates with hardware and how software works on a lower level, like assembly, that's computer engineering, and that's probably going to be more up your alley. So I hope that this kind of shed some light on those differences for you, and I hope that this was somewhat informative. If you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll try and answer them. Again, if you're in these majors in college, or if you do this for a profession, please help anyone in the comments who's struggling. Hopefully this will shed a little bit of light, but obviously there's so much more that I didn't cover. And yeah, I think that'll do it. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And other than that, yeah, have a great day.